Hello, beautiful people. Sending some text to a few people. Who will be the first one to get on tonight? Yay! Lisa's number one tonight. And I believe she's out of town, so extra points for Lisa. Hey, Jack, how are you? That's my nephew, Jack. He's in Cincinnati in school. Oh, you're logged on as Jack. It's my brother. He's logged on as his son. I was going to be so impressed that Jack joined me. So anyway, we're going to give just a minute. We said we'd start at 7, so we have just a couple of minutes. I tried to make a pizza to eat it before the live, but I'll have to eat it after because it didn't get ready. So while we're waiting, what is a show or a movie that you've been enjoying lately? As for me, I have been rewatching The Good Wife, which fortunately my daughter, who just logged on, has a Paramount Plus membership because I was watching it on Netflix. And then when I was about in season 3, all of a sudden it went off Netflix and you could only get it on Paramount Plus. So what are you watching? Put it in the chat. Have you been to a good movie lately? I'm going to turn this oven off because I still have it going with my pizza and I need it to wait till after I'm done. There. Tonight we're going to be talking about gardening hacks. So be thinking of any great gardening hacks that you might have gotten over the years or any questions that you have about gardening because that's helpful too. Hallmark mystery shows. I have never watched the Hallmark Channel before. I've never watched a Hallmark Christmas movie. I have never watched the Hallmark Channel. Maybe I need to do it. No hacks. Okay, well, you'll have some after tonight. Trust me. Trust me. So I went and ran an errand to go get the object of one of my, yes, Johnny, I will remember that. I ran an errand to go get an item to show y'all for a hack tonight. And I was in the shade at an IKEA and it was 105. And not like, I didn't just start my car, like I had driven from the office. It was 105. And then as I was driving home, it was going between 105 and 106. Good night. So hot here today, but tomorrow it's supposed to only be high of like 92 because we're supposed to have some storms rolling in tonight. So that'll be great. All right, it's 7 o'clock, so we will get started. So last week we talked about gardening in the heat and whatnot. Yeah, storms, I'm afraid. I don't know how bad they'll be or how widespread, but anyway. So I just made a list of gardening hacks that I thought of or found or whatever. And the first one on the list says seed starting. I think seed starting is a gardening hack. There are some things that you should start by seed. For instance, carrots. You can't like start carrots in a pot and then move them into the ground because the part of the plant, it's very fragile. So there are some things that you can't start and then transplant, but a lot of things you can. And it's a really good idea to do seed starting for several reasons. One is it's kind of like a plant nursery kind of, and you have the ability to control the environment more. They're not having to deal with super harsh sunlight. They're not having to deal with uneven water. They're not having to deal with, some soil with crust over the top of it. So you're able to make a more ideal situation for the plant to get started. And then once it is established, you can move it outside where then it can thrive out there. Another reason to do seed starting is, for instance, here in North Texas, when you go to plant tomatoes, the tomato season isn't very long here because it gets too hot pretty fast. So you want to start your tomatoes inside while you couldn't do it outside because it's still too cold and tomatoes are very frost tender. So you're taking advantage of a controlled atmosphere inside and then moving them out when you can. So seed starting. However, I'm going to put a little asterisk on here, and that is if you are just getting started with gardening, I wouldn't necessarily suggest that you get started with seed starting at the same time, because that's an awful lot of learning stuff all at the same time. If I were just starting out with gardening, in fact, when I did just start out with gardening, just go buy starts at the big box store or at the plant store or whatever. Go ahead and just buy starts. It's not what you want to do always, but do it to start with so that you can give yourself a leg up. There's so much to learn in gardening. I was just telling somebody today that gardening, I've always said gardening is the process of trying something and then trying to figure out why it didn't work. So you're always trying to solve for things. And also, you don't even have control of everything in gardening. There are some hobbies, probably, maybe, I don't know, playing the guitar, where you have control over how it goes for you. Well, with gardening, not only do you have to do everything right, but also the weather has to cooperate. So there's a lot to it. So not everything is best done started with seeds. So I recommend seed starting, but also when you're just starting, go ahead and just get your starts from a big box store. All right, here's my first show and tell gardening hack. And that is, this is called a hori-hori knife. And it is a gardening tool, and it is fabulous. I have several of these. This is not my real fancy one. In fact, my real fancy one I bought while I was up in Ohio at my brother's house, who is signed in as his son. But anyway, this has, I don't know if you can see, it has measurements on it. And it also has a serrated edge, and then it also has a sharp edge. So you can use it to break up soil. You can use it to, you can use it to dig. You can use it for everything. Like pretty much if you're working in the garden, this is almost all you need, this hori-hori knife. Like I said, I have a fancier one too. My fancier one has like a bottle opener on it, and it has a walnut handle. It's very beautiful. But like all other tools, you're leaving them out everywhere. And so I have several because you always need one within to grab. So this is another gardening hack, a hori-hori knife. Highly recommend. Another hack, yeah. That's my daughter there, Ruth Banks Comedy. And she's trying to be comedy in the comments. So there you go. Anyway, another hack is to figure out a way to store tools in the garden. You could put a garden shed out there if you wanted to, or another tip that I saw said that you could install a mailbox either on the side of one of the beds, or you could put it on a post or whatever. But just to be able to fit a few garden tools, like maybe your hori-hori knife and your garden gloves, you can fit them in there. So that way you always have what you need to work the garden, and it's right there. So it's very convenient, which if you listen to Gretchen Rubin at all, she's always talking about habit formation and whatnot. And one of the strategies that she talks about, and she talks about the strategy of convenience. It's amazing how much more we're able to do something if it is more convenient for us. So the strategy of convenience, create a way to keep your tools in the garden. All right, here's another garden hack that I only did this year, and I'm so glad that I did it, and it works really well. So over this past winter, I put drip irrigation in all my raised beds, and one of the rows in my in-ground garden out at the farm, ran tubes, attached it all to timers and whatnot. And so now all of my beds are on drip irrigation and they go off every day. And I've had such a better year in the garden. Not only have I had a better year in the garden produce wise, but I've also had a better year in the garden in terms of time management. Because what used to happen is every time I was out at the garden, the first thing I would need to do is go out there, get a hose, stand there at every single bed and water the beds. Well, for one thing, it's not as efficient for the plants. It's not as healthy for the plants. It also takes up my time and I'm standing there in the blazing sun. Whereas now this year, since I have drip irrigation, I can be getting things done rather than standing there with the hose. And it is healthier for the plants, especially tomato plants, because it's just the soil getting wet as opposed to the leaves. Tomatoes are very prone to fungus. And so, yeah, it's just better in 80 million ways. I don't know if it saves water or not. I think it does because there's less evaporation. All right, what next? Oh, here's something I did a couple of years ago. Well, it was 4 years ago because it was in 2021. I'll tell you why I remember. So I just wanted to try it because I'd seen it online. But out in my home garden, I took a bag of soil just like you would buy at Home Depot. And I took this hori-hori knife and I cut it like an H down the middle and on each end. And then opened it up. And so then what I had was basically a little garden bed that was just still in the soil bag. And then I took lettuce seeds and you need to do something with shallow roots. You couldn't do something with big roots. But anyway, I took lettuce seeds and put them all in there and, watered it some and whatnot. And they came up. And then I don't know if you remember February of 21, but at least here in Texas, and I think all over the country, it was this huge freeze that lasted like an entire week. It was terrible. We lost power here. It was a big deal. And so I didn't think about the bag of soil that I had out there again because I thought, well, that's gone. No, as spring came, some seeds that had not germinated before, they germinated. I got beautiful lettuce and it was planted in a bag of dirt. It was crazy. So there's always a way to figure out how you can make yourself some planting space, even if it maybe isn't obvious, but that's a good suggestion for you. Here's another thing. Most Starbucks save their coffee grounds. And coffee grounds are high in nitrogen, and they're really good if you're doing compost. Or if you're just establishing garden beds, I think we talked last week about basically composting into a new garden bed so that over the winter and whatnot, the compost breaks down. That is something very easy to do. And Starbucks, you can get a large quantity, especially even if they don't save them regularly. If you say, hey, would you save them for me? I'll be back at 2:00 or whatever. They will save them for you. And it's a huge amount of coffee grounds. Lisa, you need to send me a picture of your raised bed with a cabinet. I need a cabinet on mine. Hey, Sherry. I think you're in Texas right now, aren't you? I think so. Oh, you know what? Will you guys excuse me for a second? I meant to have this here to show you, but I need to run in the next room to get it. So stay right there. Hold on one second. Okay, sorry about that. This, you can buy at Container Store or, yes, Sherry, I think that's a great hack. Free labor is great. This is a photo organizer. You can get it at Container Store or you can get them on Amazon. And so this is made to organize 4x6 photos. Here, let me go like this so you can see it. And then it comes with, this is what you put the photos in. But guess what? They store seeds perfectly. And so then I take and put a label on them. And I actually have 2 of these. But so this is a great option for seed storage. So that way in the winter, when you're like, hey, I wonder if I have any lettuce seeds or whatever, it's real easy to find. You're not just going through a whole stack. You can tell right then. All right, another gardening hack, silage tarps. And what I mean by that is a silage tarp is a very specific large piece of plastic. Usually they have black on one side and white on the other side, and you use the side depending on what time of the year it is. Oh, that's a great idea, Lisa. Yeah, small independent coffee shops will save your coffee grounds too. A silage tarp, if you've got an area that's just all weeds and you want to turn it into a garden, if you put a silage tarp on it for a period of time, it will kill everything that's underneath it. And when you take it off, like there's earthworms under there and all kinds of stuff. It's beautiful soil under there when you take the silage tarp off. For instance, I just had, so I'm not the best builder person in the world. And I built the garden beds for my raised bed garden out at the farm. I think I'm going to do a video about different ways to do raised bed. But anyway, and so now over time, some of the edges have started to come apart and then weeds grow up. So as I am able, and like when a bed gets bad, I've decided I'm covering it up with a silage tarp to just kill all the weeds around it. And then just yesterday, I took the next step, take the silage tarp off, everything's dead. Then I'm prying that raised bed off of there, throwing it away. And then I'm putting a Vigo bed, which is a brand of raised bed. I save up my credit card points and then buy a Vigo bed. And but anyway, the silage tarp, it's great for just killing everything in a bed. Or if it's, let's say you don't want to do fall gardening for some crazy reason, you can use a silage tarp to go over your bed so that weeds don't grow. What they say is Mother Nature is modest. And if you don't cover her, then she will cover herself. So if you don't cover her like with a tarp or a cover crop or with plants or whatever it is, she will cover herself. And that is because weed seeds will blow in and things will grow and then the bed will be covered. Oh, Robin, tell me, yesterday you found a mini beehive. You need to text me a picture of that. Because if it's in the eaves, it probably isn't a bee. I'm more inclined to think it's a wasp. So go take a picture and text it to me. And speaking of Mother Nature wanting to be covered, mulch. So if you have a garden bed and you've got, plants every foot or whatever it is, you're going to want to put mulch on the surface of the soil. Because for one thing, it keeps the temperature of the soil down in the summer. It doesn't expose. Do you hear the dogs going through the dog door? It makes it to where the soil isn't exposed to the hot sun. And then also, it keeps the moisture from evaporating out of the soil. So you don't have to water as much. It's just all the way better. Plus, when you, depending on what you use, like for instance, if you use grass clippings, as that breaks down, it's super good for the soil. Grass clippings is another great source of nitrogen, especially if you need to be sure you're getting it from a yard that they don't use weed and seed. What is that called? That stuff you put on so you don't have weeds. Anyway, you don't want anything with an herbicide in it because you're actually trying to grow plant matter. You don't want to be killing the plant matter. So mulch, which rolls into the next thing, which is use what you have. So I was just talking about grass clippings. That's a great example of using what you have. Another way you can use grass clippings is if you're layering into a new bed and like composting over the winter so that you have a new bed to plant in the spring, then grass clippings is a great example. You might have a yard guy. My yard guy that I've had for many, many years. Juan. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, do send me a picture. Oh, hi, Malia. Anyway, God, now see, she shook me up so much. Yes. Hey, Jama. Now, is it really you or is it your mom? Anyway, yeah. Lost my train of thought there. I've got so many people here that I love. That's great. All right. So my next gardening hack is flowers. And that is because, for one thing, when you plant a few flowers in amongst your vegetables, for one thing, it attracts pollinators, which is great and very needed. The other thing is that it makes it beautiful. And the thing that benefits the garden the most is the gardener. And so if you can make your garden a pretty place to be, then you will be more apt to spend time in it. And you'll like pull a weed or clip something or make an adjustment or whatever. The garden thrives through the attention of the gardener. So that's another reason to plant flowers. Now, Malia, my niece, grandniece, just sent me a picture. Oh, nope, that is wasps, honey. That's not bees. Those are wasps. So you need to get a can of wasp spray and spray them and go running. Those are wasps, and they are mean, mean, mean. Yeah, those are wasps. All right, the next thing. There on Amazon, you can buy an auger that fits into your drill or your impact driver, to where when you go to like plant your your plant starts, you can just make a hole. You're not like digging, you're just and loosening up your soil, and it's super cool. All right, Sherry says, do you have to use specific flowers? Are there some you should not use in the garden or around certain vegetables? Okay, there's a whole book that's said that the name of it is Vegetables Love Flowers. And it's written by this really nice lady. And it's all about what vegetables and what flowers. It's all about like companion planting. For instance, some people plant marigolds around things because they like mask the scent. There's a whole science to it. I tend to do a lot of zinnias because I am here in Texas and it is darn hot, especially today. It's 105 degrees. And zinnias love the heat, and they're beautiful, and the pollinators love them. And plus they just reseed themselves. I didn't plant any zinnias in the raised bed garden this year, and I have so many. They just reseeded themselves, and it's great. Yes, I agree. That was beautiful, Lisa. Lisa planted some wildflowers this year. I think it's great. Did you happen to notice a lot of pollinators in your yard more than usual by any chance? I bet you did. All right, here is a garden hack that I found as I was browsing around trying to find, things for tonight. And I have never, how does that? Oh, my husband's trying to make fun of me. I was making the sound of the auger. Anyway, yes, they were there. So I read a thing, and I've never done this before, and I'm very curious to see if it works, but I'm going to tell you what I read. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Johnny and Philip can take turns making fun of me. Yes, I will, Sherry. I'll text it to you. I'll text you right now. In fact, here, I'll go find it on Amazon. So this person said, buy a sack of alfalfa pellets. Now, alfalfa pellets are what we used to feed, what we fed the cows for a treat. Now, I don't have any cows right now because I'm having a big surgery in December, so I can't get cows till the spring because it's a big ask to ask someone to take care of your cows all the way out at the farm. So anyway, I will have cows again, and when I do, I will feed them alfalfa pellets. They're just crack for these cows. They love them. Anyway, but he says if you take a 50-pound bag of alfalfa pellets when you're planting anything, especially tomatoes, corn, or veggies that consume a lot of nitrogen, toss a handful of alfalfa pellets into the hole before planting. For tomatoes, include a handful of eggshells or oyster shells for calcium. oyster shells, like you might feed your chicken oyster shells. Anyway, this will discourage blossom end rot as long as you do not excessively water away the nutrients. Alfalfa pellets take time to break down and release high organic nitrogen directly to the root system of your new plants. So I have no idea if that works or not, but it certainly sounded interesting. So maybe I'll try it, especially once I have cows and I have the alfalfa pellets. Anyway, so here is the hack that I had to run an errand for today. It's one of the hacks that I read and I was like, I have got to go get this. So here it is. So this is supposed to be a laundry basket from IKEA. It's called Slib, S-L-I-B-B. Now, I don't know about you. That doesn't look big enough to be a laundry basket in my world. Does it you? Hey, Brenda. So this looks very tiny. Let me tell you the challenge that I have been having this year, which it'll sound like a humble brag, like, oh, I've had so much harvest, I couldn't even keep up with it. But like trying to keep up with all the tomatoes and the cantaloupe, everything. So I have a couple of, harvest baskets, and they're kind of expensive, And then I saw this. This was $5. So I bought 5 of them. And I got the one there's one without holes, and Johnny, and then there's one with holes. I got the one with holes because that way you can rinse the produce and it could come off, and then you could bring it in the house. But anyway, isn't that great for a harvest basket? For $5, I could not believe it. Cheaper than dirt. I don't know. You guys are making all kinds of bad puns. All right. So now we're down to our last 5 minutes. What other gardening questions might you have? Besides the fact, how do you not die when you garden when it's 105 degrees, which we covered last week? The best thing I know is to look forward to the fall garden. That's for really sure. Oh, yeah, right. That's me. Something I've skipped, succession planning. I am not good at this, but in a perfect world, there are lots of things like, say, squash, melons, stuff that there is time within your planting season. Like you should be planting them, say, every 2 weeks so that you're always getting more harvest. And I am terrible at that. Like once I have planted cantaloupe, in my mind, check, I have planted cantaloupes. But what I should be doing is planting some, and then a couple of weeks later, I plant some more in another area and then in another one. So I should be better about that. And maybe I'll try and be better about it in the future. But that's another gardening hack. Yes. Okay. So Sherry asks, I know the heat will affect tomatoes turning, and I assume you mean ripening. How can I overcome that? So one thing is to try and plant earlier so that you get your harvest before the weather gets too hot. Tomato flowers won't set fruit, and also the fruit won't ripen when the temperature is over something like 91 degrees. So I don't know how hot it is where you live right now, but during the part of the day that it is not over that amount, like they will still ripen like at night and stuff. But something that some people have tried is put shade cloth over your tomato bed because it is cooler in the shade. And so that's one thing you can try. Okay, so she says where she lives, it's almost the same as Texas, so it's darn hot. Any mushrooms in the future? I could be convinced. I could be convinced to do mushrooms. We'll have to look into that. Not those kind of mushrooms, though. Just the eating kind. All right. I promised I would only keep you 30 minutes, and that is about where we are. I so appreciate every one of you coming, and I will see you next Thursday at 7 o'clock with a new subject. Who knows what it'll be? All right. Thank you guys so much for joining, and I'll see you later. Love you too. Good to see you. Bye.